Bluegrass Jam Along is proud to be sponsored by Collins Guitars and Mandolins, each and every one built from the sound up in Austin, Texas. This episode is also brought to you by Peghead Nation, the home of roots music instruction. If you want to improve your playing, join me and thousands of other pickers getting better every day at pegheadnation.com. Hi, this is Matt, and you're listening to Bluegrass Jam Along, the podcast for anyone and everyone who loves bluegrass. Hey everybody, welcome back to Bluegrass Jam Along. My guest today is Bronwyn Keith-Hynes, who I'm sure many of you will know as the fiddle player with Molly Tuttle and Golden Highway, also two-time IBMA Fiddle Player of the Year, and she's been on the podcast before. Almost exactly 2 years ago to the day before recording this interview, we recorded one about her record Fiddler's Pastime. Then she's back today to talk about her brand new record, I Built a World, which is wonderful. We cover all sorts of stuff, including winning a Grammy, past couple of years playing with Molly, but particularly this record and the people who play on it and her sort of experience of recording this, sort of her first record as a lead singer and how that differs from the last record and so much cool stuff. Really interesting one. I enjoyed this. She's always great to chat to. Just one quick point before we start. If you do want to listen to Bluegrass Jam Along without the ads, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts for a small amount of money and you can listen ad-free. But that's it. Let's crack on with the interview. Here comes Bronwyn Keith-Hynes. My guest on Bluegrass Jam Along today is Bronwyn Keith-Hynes, who was probably one of the earliest guests on the podcast a couple of years ago when she came on to talk about her wonderful, wonderful record, Fiddler's Pastime. And she's back to talk about her brand new record, I Built a World. Bronwyn, welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me.
It's cool to have you back. And for starters, what a great record. I love it.
Oh, man, thank you so much.
It's really interesting because I listened back to our last interview and we talked then about you were putting a new record together and you started to think about what that might sound like and how it might pan out. And so it's fascinating listening to it. And one of the things I remember most when we spoke last time is you talked about making a record as being a sort of learning experience. So it's fascinating to find out sort of what you learned making the last one that you applied to this record.
Oh, gosh. Man, I'm not sure. I mean, you know, this is like my debut singing record, right? This is the first thing I've ever put out where I'm singing lead vocals. So that's kind of a whole new thing. But, you know, that last record was it was my debut record, period, you know, so that was, I think I learned that you're never as prepared as you think you are. You know, you think stuff's going to be a certain way or, you know, and then you get in there and think you kind of have to be flexible, like things change and to kind of roll with, you know, I'm recording with these amazing musicians and kind of trying to make space for them to be creative and offer ideas and suggestions, just to get the most out of everyone's, you know, musicality.
Yeah. And it is a great selection of people on there. And we'll talk about that in a bit actually, but I'm so curious to know, because one of the things I find fascinating is when a singer is putting a record together, I find song selection really interesting because there are people who obviously write all their own material and they select from their own songs. But I find there's a real art. Like Alison Krauss is great at it, and Tony Rice was great at it, and like Del McCoury is great at it, like picking a bunch of songs and putting them together. Was there a song this record started with? Because there definitely was with Fiddler's Pastime, and it sort of hung together around that. Did you have a starting point for this one?
I did, yeah. That song, I Built a World, which ended up being the title track, was definitely the first song that I've been kind of brewing on this record for a long time. Like I'd wanted to make a solo record. So I was like, sort of like half-heartedly collecting songs, hoping to work up like the nerve to do something or get the encouragement to do it. So I'd heard this song. I heard it like on the radio in Kentucky, like maybe in 2021. I just heard it. I heard it performed live by this songwriter and his band, Matthew Parsons, and it was just. I thought it was just such a cool song, and the lyrics stuck with me enough that like when I got to where I was going, I like jumped on my phone. I was like Googling the lyrics and his name. I was like trying to it like took me a while to like put it together, find out who he was and get in touch with him. But that was kind of where the record started.
And was it the sort of the sound of that song? Was it the lyrical theme of it? What sort of kind of kicked it all off from there? What really drew you to it?
It was the lyrics. It was the, it's kind of, I think you could think of that song a lot of different ways. It's, the lyrics are like, I built a world, a place and a space in my mind, that's no kind of leaving, it's not no kind for leaving. And it's, kind of, it could be about a breakup. It could be about like a parent's divorce. It could be about a lot of different things where you're kind of like struggling and just, it kind of had hippie child vibes to me, a lot of like kind of like images of being in nature and, and I grew up a total hippie child. So I don't know. It just kind of resonated with me in a lot of different ways.
Well, you talked in some of the notes that came with the stuff that I got about the record being about daydreaming and building worlds in your mind. And you like felt like you spent a lot of your childhood doing that. And it is one of the things, I guess, we can lose as we get a bit older, is that thing. It's one of the joys of a creative project of any kind, is it is like a little world you carry around in your head at all times, and you get a bit lost in it and go and think about it. And so I love that as an idea. Mm-hmm. And songs can definitely do that. Songs can just transport you somewhere for 3 or 4 minutes and just turn your head and let you see the world in a different way. Yeah,
it's pretty magical. Yeah.
And so you're saying that this is your first record as a lead singer, and it's nearly all songs. I think there's one tune on there, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
And so how did you, because I know you sort of spoken about wanting to get the confidence to do it and be ready to, and you were working on your singing a lot last time I spoke to you.
Yeah.
And like, how did it come together? Was there a point you sort of felt, I've got this, I know what I'm doing, I'm ready? Or was it just you set a deadline and went, I'm just going to work on this and get to the point where I've got the songs and I feel good about them?
Yeah, I think it was kind of, I ended up having the time at the end of, at the end of 2022, I had the time. I just kind of felt like it was the right time. And I sort of knew that I'd never really feel like I was ready, like whoever feels like they're ready to record a vocal album for the first time. But,
yeah,
I kind of knew from doing my last album that it was going to be a learning process. I was going to be able to fix things if I didn't like it. It's like, it's not like, I just kind of wanted to try it and see what happened. And I was definitely encouraged by my partner, now fiance, Jason Carter. He, we play a lot of music at home. He had put out a vocal record, and like kind of watching him go through that process was really encouraging to me and kind of like made me feel like I had a template for how you would even put that together. So I decided to work with the same engineer and producer he did, Brent Truitt, who's just kind of a legendary bluegrass engineer in Nashville. And because I knew Brent, I felt comfortable with him, and I felt comfortable being vulnerable with him, so.
And you co-produced this one, didn't you?
Yeah. I had a lot of the song ideas and some arrangement ideas, and so did he in terms of arrangements. And he kind of took over a little more once we were in the studio, and was really helpful about, kind of getting the best performance out of everyone, knowing when we had the take or when we needed more takes, and, that kind of stuff.
Do you find, like approaching this record as a singer, it changes the way that you play as a fiddle player? Like, are you thinking less about that? Are you kind of playing less, sort of fewer fills and less backup, and just sort of thinking about the singing?
Yeah, it definitely makes me, if I'm singing, then it's like the singing is the most important thing in my mind. And then the fiddling is, I don't want to say it's an afterthought, and it's not an afterthought on the record for sure. But when I'm performing live, it's funny. It's almost freeing for the fiddle, because instead of spending the whole song thinking about what I'm going to do on my fiddle break, which is like my one moment to like express myself really, and like, getting all like psyched up for my fiddle break, it's like, I spend the whole song singing it and expressing myself that way. And then I also express myself with the fiddle break, so it almost takes the pressure off the fiddling, which is kind of freeing and like fun. And then I'm like, okay, that's not the only thing I'm doing here.
Well, and it's interesting that, because like a good break of any kind takes the energy that the singer's created when they're singing and then builds on it and develops it, you know. And if you're the singer creating that energy as well, it must give you a slightly different perspective on how that all fits together.
Yeah. And like, if you're improvising, you know, trying to improvise a break, you don't have even a moment to think about what you're even going to do, because you're singing up until it happens. And then it makes me be very in the moment, which is really fun.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. And you sort of went with a pretty kind of fixed band for this one. I
did.
All the tracks.
Yeah, totally. I think the only variation is there's two different banjo players on the record, Wes Corbett and Scott Vestal. But yeah, the rest of them is the same. I kind of wanted that like continuity, and then to sort of like add some different colors and flavors by having some different guest vocalists sing harmony with me.
Yeah, and there's some great guest vocalists on there. And the band, like, it's such an interesting band. Some of my like just favorite people to listen to in that band. I mean, you've got Bryan Sutton on guitar, who is, you know, like,
yeah, he's the guy. Yeah.
But you've also got Jeff Picker on bass, and Dominic. The more I hear Dominic Leslie, the more I just like fall in love with his sound. You know, I spoke to him briefly about the 20th anniversary of Mike Marshall and Chris Thiele's Into the Cauldron record.
Oh, cool.
And I just heard him on so many things over the last year or two, and he's so cool, isn't he?
Oh, he's so cool. He's so good. He's such a spontaneous player. He's always in the moment and always reacting and listening and playing something that's based off of what is in the moment. You know, he's not like playing anything that doesn't need to be there. I love his playing. I can't say enough about it.
And is there a reason that you chose the banjo for sort of mixing the personnel up a bit?
Yeah, there was things I wanted from Wes. You know, Wes produced my first record, and I love his playing so much. And I love his versatility. And Scott Vestal is also one of my favorite banjo players. And I just couldn't choose. Like, I kind of just wanted them both.
You didn't choose.
I don't know. Yeah, exactly. I was like, well, I don't have to choose. I don't know. Recently I love those Sturgill Simpson bluegrass records, and Scott plays banjo on those. And honestly, those have been like those are like one of my favorite bluegrass records, those two, Cutting Grass. So I don't know. Yeah. I've just been hearing a lot of Scott Vestal on those the last couple years, and so I kind of had that in my mind as I wanted that flavor too. So yeah.
And there's that sort of classic banjo and fiddle sound, and does the banjo play a different role in the band when you're a fiddler? Do you kind of listen for that particularly, or is it just a case of, you know, that you just wanted those two players?
I think it was more I just wanted those two players out, you know, but yeah, I think they both brought like different and like beautiful things to the album.
That in itself, as the band with a couple of variations on banjo, is a really incredible sound. And then you've got Jerry Douglas on it.
Jerry Douglas, I know.
Quite a few tracks as well.
I know. I wish I could have had him on. Well, I wish I could have had him on everything, because he's amazing. But I also wanted the variety of having dobro on some and straight 5-piece on another. So I guess that's why we did what we did. But gosh, the tracks that he plays on is just like, he just brings the magic, you know? Yeah.
So many things that I hear him do where he'll just play like a 2 or 3 note fill on something. It's almost like a half a thought that is just the most perfect thing ever. And you think, how do you keep doing that?
It's incredible. I know. It's like, I feel like I should just take a year and only learn Jerry Douglas licks and solos, and might learn a few things.
Well, I was going to ask you actually, because we talked last time about some of your influences on the fiddle, and I wondered, like, approaching this as a singer, if there are particular like voices that have inspired you and particular singers that you like.
Yeah. I've always been really inspired by Tim O'Brien and Sarah Jarosz's singing. Those are some of my favorite bluegrass singers. You know, they've got I don't think I sound like them in any way, but their approach, you know, that's definitely been an inspiration. Love Sturgill Simpson, and you know, I wouldn't say he's a bluegrass singer, but I love country musicians and like country people that make bluegrass records, and people that don't sound totally like a regular bluegrass singer too. So that's something. I really like Britt Taylor, and she ended up on the record. I love her country stuff and her new bluegrass album. I don't know. Gosh, who else do I like? And I love like Tony Rice and, you know, Jimmy Martin and classic bluegrass singers too. It's like, I don't know, there's so much. And it's hard to like even want to name singers in relation to yourself and be like, these are my influences. Cause it's like, I don't sound anything like any of them. And I'm still trying to figure out even what I sound like and like, what is my voice and what's my sound? But I don't know. I think you just got to like start doing it, or at least that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you're talking about that combination of like a solid bass with the band and some variety as well. Because obviously the last record had lots of guest lead singers on, including Sarah and Tim were both on there. But there is, the variety comes from like the song choice, but also from like this amazing roster of harmony singers you've got in there, you know, and there's a real nice like line through the record, you know, it starts off pretty up tempo, but there's a lovely, it takes you, I think the variety of the vocal sounds particularly is really nice. It feels
cool.
really thought out. You know, you often get a record where there's loads of guest singers on and there's just loads of guest singers, but this feels like really sculpted for each track, and there's some great harmonies on there.
Oh man, thanks. That's nice to hear you say. I was definitely trying to like, you know, make sure my like harmony singer choices were, you know, driven by the song and not just by the name or just by being random, you know. So I'm glad that comes across that way.
And in terms of the songs, obviously, you know, we talked about I Built a World, sort of kicking it all off. What period did you kind of collect these together over? Because I know you sort of said after the last record you were starting to assemble material. How long did it take you to sort of get that list together?
It took through even part of the recording process, honestly. It was like we recorded, I think, the first 7 or 8 songs in the first round of recording, and then I just didn't have enough material quite to, I would have loved to record them all at once. I just didn't, I couldn't find the next couple songs I wanted. So then I was like, okay, I'll just record these, then I'll keep looking and do another session. And then I did another session like 9 months later with the last 2 songs. I think we did 9, and then I did 2 more. So yeah, it was kind of like throughout the whole process, I was reaching out to people like right up until like, you know, a week before we were going in to record, honestly. Just, you know, it's hard to like, it's hard. It's, you know, it's super fun and hard to be like, okay, that's it. I'm going to stop looking now.
Yeah. I can imagine you never stop looking for songs when you're collecting, you know. What some of the things that you'd originally found that you were convinced were going to be on the record and didn't make it as well?
Yeah. There were, I went through phases of some different songs that I like really liked. And then I found another song that I thought would beat it. And, you know, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just trying to find songs that I felt like kind of worked together. I would find songs sometimes that would just be too different from the general vibe of what I was going for. And yeah.
Yeah. And I know you sort of talked previously about maybe with this record trying to, and maybe this is part of the more settled band idea, but trying to create something that you stood a better chance of being able to tour with, or at least do some shows with, because there was such a eclectic mix of people on the, like, even getting them together for one show would have been a nightmare, let alone trying to get some gigs together.
Totally. Yeah, that was kind of definitely something on my mind, was like, I actually want to be able to perform this music. And I have been, which has been really cool. I've been doing that like weekly gig at this dive bar here in town, Dee's Lounge, and done a couple weekend runs outside of Nashville that have gone good. And yeah, it's been so fun, like, and another whole challenge performing this stuff live, but it's been really satisfying. And
is that with the band that are on the record?
No, not, I couldn't get all those cats. They all have a lot of other commitments, but I've been able to put together kind of several different, actually Wes is the only person from the record who's been performing with me live, but I've been able to put together like several different versions of a really great live band that have been, it's been wonderful.
And I've never been in a band that's had a residency, but I've always loved the idea of it, of just being in the same place on the same night every week and just getting to try stuff out and getting to kind of work on stuff as you go almost.
Totally. Yeah, I've always wanted that. And this is my first time I've ever done that. It just kind of worked out like that. East Nashgrass had that slot for like 6 years. And, I would go and sit in with them. And it was just always my weekly hang anyways. And I live right down the road. So it's kind of just this natural progression when they started touring on the road more. And, it just didn't make sense for them to continue with the residency for me to just kind of jump in there.
We'll be right back with you just after this. Collings Guitars has been a long-time supporter of the bluegrass community, from collaborating with artists to sponsoring festivals big and small, and now by sponsoring Bluegrass Jam Along. Handmade in Austin, Texas, every Collings guitar and mandolin that leaves the shop is built from the sound up, and the team loves seeing a Collings in the hands of players of all levels, from local musicians to world-renowned pickers. Visit collingsguitars.com for more. This episode is also brought to you by Peghead Nation, the home of roots music instruction. With 65 streaming video courses for guitar, mandolin, banjo, fiddle, dobro, bass and ukulele from some of the leading names in acoustic music, Peghead Nation has something for every picker. You'll learn the tunes and techniques you need to join in at jams and play the music you love, plus advanced techniques like improvisation, theory and ear training. Your first course is just $20 per month, and you can add more for $10 a month. Sign up for any course and get your first month free with the promo code JAMALONG, all one word. Join thousands of other players, including me, who are advancing on their instruments and having more fun playing the roots music they love at pegheadnation.com. And I was interviewed Lindsay Lou fairly recently, and I was saying that just as an outside observer, this D's feels like it's a thing, like almost like a CBGB's type, like clubhouse for Nashville bluegrass musicians. Like I had a friend from near me in London who was going to be in Nashville for a few nights. They said go to Deeds, and cool. He knows nothing about bluegrass apart from that I like it. And I said just go, and he just had he saw you play, he saw Lindsay play. He had an extraordinary time, and like this is totally out of his sphere of experience. And there he was, sort of living my ideal night out.
That's awesome.
I'm sat back at home in London. But he loved
That's
it.
so cool. That's wild. And I think, it's partially the stream, they've been streaming that thing every week. And I think that's just reached people all over the world. And but it is like one of the most like legit dive bars in Nashville still. That's, it's far enough away from downtown that, you don't get too many like really touristy or, party people. It's a little bit more low key. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting seeing some of the stuff that's come out of it as well. And it maybe just because, like you say, they've been streaming stuff and I've noticed it more, but it's just so many of the musicians that have grabbed my ear over the last couple of years seem to revolve around there. It feels like a really cool scene at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And I was sort of curious, like, since we spoke last time, we talked a bit about the Molly Tuttle project, which said that at that point the first album was out, which was sort of partly a band record but not entirely, and then the second album felt much more like this is Molly Tuttle and Golden Highway. And I was wondering, because that both records won Grammys, and I was wondering if the second one felt more like a team effort almost, if that was felt like a different vibe, because
100%. Like the first record, the Crooked Tree, she made with a studio band. I played on one song. Dominic played on the whole thing, but Shelby and Kyle did not play on that record at all. So to be eligible to actually be part of the win the Grammy along with Molly, you have to play on like X number of tracks, like a certain percentage of the album. So only Dominic, quote unquote, only Dominic won a Grammy for that record, which was kind of a confusing thing. It was billed as Molly Tuttle and Golden Highway, I think. So I think everyone thought we had all won a Grammy. And, it's like kind of, you don't want to you just kind of, it's kind of too much hassle to explain it a lot. You just kind of want to be like, yep, cool. That's what happened. But yeah, so then City of Gold, we all played on the whole record. It was a total band record. So then for that to win a Grammy was so cool. It's really special.
It's incredible to sort of think that that's just a couple of years ago. Like I talked to Kyle when his record came out, and I was sort of talking about Golden Highway as if you've been together for 5 years, And he said, it's only been like basically 2 years.
Yeah.
But it feels like you're such a kind of fixture of the scene and going back to the same towns and just playing bigger and bigger venues. And it feels like you've been around forever, weirdly.
Isn't that? Yeah, totally. It feels like it's been longer for us too, in like a good way. It feels really settled, and like I think we've just been hitting it pretty hard. So we've just had a lot of like shared experiences together. So kind of really feel like a unit.
And is that sort of? You've obviously been in bands before with Mile 12 and previous projects. And is there anything particularly you've learned from the last couple of years that's fed into your kind of approach to making this record?
Gosh, I'm not sure. Well, you know what? Just being around Molly and Shelby as like female bluegrass singers actually has had a huge impact on me wanting to sing. I'd never been around such great female bluegrass singers consistently night after night, and just hearing Molly sing, hearing her warm up, it's just, you can just like learn a lot just from being around someone who's so great at something, and just to see it up close. And that was super inspiring. So that, and, I think I've learned a lot about performing too from the whole band. Everyone's such a great performer, in that, I think we all kind of inspire each other in different ways to sort of like, keep it exciting on stage. And so I don't know if that influenced the record, but it definitely influences my live performances.
Yeah. Were you before, because that band, like, it feels like certainly a couple of people in that band are just out and out kind of entertainers visually. And was that your thing? Or did you sort of feel like, I've got to move around more now, I've got to kind of compete with this?
Yeah, not compete, but like, like keep up or like do my part. I felt, I don't think I was thinking about myself on stage as a performer before this band. I just thought of myself as a fiddler, and then suddenly standing next to Kyle every night, and he's just like rocking out, and I'm like, whoa, you can do that? Like, cool. Like, I don't know, I better rock out too, because otherwise I'm gonna look pretty silly just like standing here, so yeah. And it's just, I don't know, and like the crowds we play for too, I think it's like a give and take. It's like you can't just be rocking out super hard on stage if the crowd is not giving you anything. You'd feel silly, and it just wouldn't work. But like the crowds we play for they're so good, and they give us so much energy. It's like you just want to give it back, and then it's just this energy exchange, and the more you give, the more they give, and it's really, I've never experienced that before. It's really special.
No, and it is really interesting actually that you sort of need the crowd to go there with you.
Yeah, I think so. Like you can give so much at the beginning, of a night or something, and kind of like let them know it's okay to like loosen up, and like, or sometimes the crowd is right away. They're like the ones that are just like going nuts. And then you're like, okay, I'm going to bring it. Like, you're going to go there. Let's go there, And
I love all that because, whatever it's like any form of movement, because you get that thing of in bluegrass bands, particularly where people just sort of stand in line and play. And that's great. But there's something wonderful about listening and having visual cues as to what's going on. Like you see who's playing the break because they show you. And it's like, it's a great thing to see as an audience member. Yeah.
I think maybe having movement on stage can help attract some audience members that, that may come from other genres and be used to that a little bit more, in pop and rock, there might be a lot more movement on stage in general, and a lot more, and the diehard bluegrass fans aren't going to really care, or maybe they would think it's weird if you're moving around a bunch, and that's okay, but like, yeah, it might just help draw in some people that aren't used to the bluegrass thing.
And it feels like you guys are part of a big thing that's going on in that space at the moment, of people bringing people to bluegrass with music that is in various forms, totally bluegrass, but also like steps out in all sorts of other directions as well. And there's obviously Molly and what Billy Strings is doing, but also people like Sarah Jarosz and Sierra Hull, who totally straight down be bluegrass musicians when they want to be, and absolutely not at the same time. And it feels like there's a new wave of energy around bluegrass at the moment, and lots of people getting interested in it in a way that they would have been with Nickel Creek, 15 years ago or 20 years ago or whatever.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I went and saw Billy Strings at the Bridgestone Arena here in Nashville a couple months ago and was just blown away. I'd seen him before, but I hadn't seen him in a couple years, so I hadn't seen how, I hadn't been in a crowd that big for him, and it was so cool. Like, he's bringing bluegrass to so many people. Just to hear him sing Freeborn Man to, like, I don't know, was that 20,000 people? It's just like, whoa, I wish Tony Rice could see this, it's like so cool. But I don't know, I'm just happy to be a part of any of this,
Well, and presumably you've kind of got, at the same time as the shows with Molly are getting bigger and bigger, also playing a venue like Dee's and having the opportunity to do both must be a lot of fun.
Totally. Yeah. It's funny. And like some nights, like I would be more nervous, like fronting a band at Dee's than playing for, thousands and thousands of people. Yeah. It's just because it's just a newer thing, but it's funny and like kind of a thrill, I like to keep pushing myself in different ways and.
And is this the first time you've sort of fronted a band in that sense, in terms of like also being the person on stage who's chatting to the crowd and doing all of that?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's my first time doing that.
And how are you finding it?
It's fun. I kind of have to just like roll with how I'm feeling that night, but like I don't know. Yeah, it's pretty fun.
And do you think you'll get a chance to do much live work with the record? Because the record's out in, I think, a week, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're going to get a chance to play like any festivals or tour it at all?
I would say I'm going to do any festivals this year, but I'm going to keep doing, I'm just like kind of sprinkling in stuff in my limited time, away from Golden Highway. Right now I'm performing at Americana Fest. I'm doing an official showcase there in September, and
cool.
Booking a few gigs here and there this summer, but just kind of doing as much as I can without making myself totally crazy. And I view this sort of me leading a band thing as kind of a longer term thing. Like, this is going to be something I can do for the rest of my life, and I'd just like to continue to learn how to do it and get better at it. And when the opportunities present themselves and I have the time to do it, it'll be what I do.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, isn't it? It's a different, being a band leader is different from being in a band.
Yeah.
Or being a member in somebody else's band, and it's a different bunch of skills and different, suddenly it's you that's got to do all of it. And
yeah,
it's, I can imagine there's a learning curve there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And obviously also you've got a wedding to plan. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. I know, gosh, this year is just like, yeah, I was just having like stress dreams about that last night. It's just like a lot going on. It's like if putting out a solo record and going on tour for the whole year wasn't enough, let's plan a wedding. But it's super exciting. We're really happy.
And I was just looking, just going back to my, I sort of knew this, but it reminded me when I was looking on the IBMA website last year that obviously, like, Jason won Fiddle Player of the Year last year. You won it the year before. Yeah. You won it the year before that. You're going to try and keep it in the family now as long as you can.
Yeah, just keep trading it back and forth. Oh my gosh. No, I mean, gosh, I feel like there's so many more people that haven't won it that should win it. So I'll be happy to see anybody win it, and curious what happens this year. And
is it exciting? There's so many like interesting things going on at the moment in the sort of string band space. It feels like there's a lot of energy and a lot of attention and just so much cool stuff going on.
Oh yeah, gosh, yeah, it feels like a really fun time to be in this world.
And are you getting kind of more? Do you get asked more to play on other people's projects as well? I noticed like you play on the Tony Trischka record that's about to come out, the Earl Jam, and
yeah,
are you starting to get a few more bits come up as well?
Yeah, here and there for sure. And it's tough. It's like, I feel like the more you're in town, the more people think of you for recording stuff. But I haven't been in town very much. So, when I'm home for a little while, I'll start to do some sessions, and then I'll get more calls, and then I'll have to turn them down because I'm going to be gone. And then, but I think it's just like, that's kind of how it goes. But yeah, I've gotten a few calls to do some cool sessions and albums this summer that I'm going to try to squeeze in. So
brilliant. Well, I love this record. It's really cool. I was really interested to hear it, having talked to you about the last one. It's always fascinating to know if how you envisioned it then was how it ended up. And it's just such a cool record. I hope it does really well for you. And it's been really cool to get to chat to you again.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's great to catch up, and we'll do it again in 2 years, right?
Yeah, I'll put it in the diary now.
Yeah.
Bluegrass Jam Along is proud to be sponsored by Collings Guitars and Mandolins, making some of the finest guitars and mandolins in the world since the 1970s. Visit collingsguitars.com and find out why.